powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan's here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can check out on any podcasting platform. And don't forget, the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam Caplan is back as the Eagles lose badly to the Niners. And when you lose late at this stage of the season, the warts show a little bit. So what issues are still remaining, Adam? We'll dive through those right now for another edition of Football at 4. Adam, what's happening?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Shaq Leonard signing, what it means, what his role be, and how he fits in and so forth later in this segment. But yeah, look, I picked the Niners to win on our pregame show. I was pretty strong on that all week. I was not going to change it. The only time I changed my pick, and I wound up getting that right, was when the Dolphins were without almost their entire secondary when they came to Philly here. And I'm like, you know what, there's no way that the Dolphins should beat the Eagles here with that, and that's what happened. Whereas I thought coming in, the Niners had the better roster. I knew that, felt strongly about it, and they clearly do in a lot of areas. But the Eagles are super competitive. I thought they'd make it more of a game like that. Did surprise me. I didn't see blowout. I know Mosher had a great, really interesting note. Jeff picked the Eagles to win, but he said if they lost, he wouldn't be surprised if they got blown out, which I thought was fascinating because if you really look at it, the Niners are a very structured team. They don't get behind much, and when they do, it's kind of out of their comfort zone. They're very programmed, offensively in particular, but they just don't get behind a lot. And when they did, we saw in the middle of the season where they lost 3 games, they just didn't play as well. But what I thought was interesting, Mike, as we get started here, is that the Eagles get up 6-0. The Niners have negative yardage. They're dominating, but they're only up 6-0 after one quarter. As I texted Jeff, this is not a good thing. Not a good thing. This is a problem. And it wound up being a portent of things to come because they got outscored after that 42-13.
All right, let's take a look at some of the things that happened in the game. Let's go on the offensive side of the ball, Adam Caplan. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. I mean, it looked like a lot of backyard football, just running around, using his hand. Hey, go to the back of the corner. What did you make of the game that Hurts had?
I've already talked to someone who's graded the tape for us, league source, who said that 2 things that are bothersome, and this continues to happen, and he can only answer this. He was too indecisive, moved when he shouldn't have moved, bailed from the pocket when he shouldn't have. He obviously took that really bad sack, what was beautifully protected. He knows better. You hear Greg Olson on the broadcast talk about it. That ball's got to come out. Just get rid of it. Just throw it out of bounds. One of the things that Hurts really improved last year during his MVP run is his willingness to give up on the play when it wasn't there or he just didn't see what he liked. He threw it out of bounds. It's really good at it. Live for the next down, and you just can't take sacks like that. So he was indecisive. Now, another thing, Mike, that I would add to this is last year when he had those moments, they were not only were they far fewer last season, they wouldn't last long. Like, okay, he might have a game where he'd have a half a quarter where there were 2 or 3 throws he should have made. Next game he was great. You're not seeing that here, Mike. You're just not. He's just indecisive. I don't know why. Now, I heard Brian Johnson speak at his press conference today. I know he wasn't taking a shot at Hurts. We know how close they are, known each other for almost all of Jalen's life. But he gave kudos to their offensive line, how great it was. So how do we read into that? Hurts didn't play well. He didn't get rid of the football. And Johnson didn't say it, but there were too many instances where the pass targets were getting open, where the ball should have come out, where he could have thrown with more anticipation, like his counterpart Brock Purdy did. So you just got to play better, and that's the bottom line.
Was the offensive scheme an issue or some adjustments needed in the game, on Sunday, looking at what's happening there? I know a lot of people complaining they only ran the ball 6 times in the game. Yeah. So scheme, some adjustments. What do you got?
All right, so for Patreon, we have John D. Flippo on, the former Eagles Super Bowl winning quarterbacks coach, and I'd asked John about, look, Hurts struggled, or it was inconsistent. He was great in the second half, so the Chiefs game, and particularly the Bills game. But, the first half has to be better. What can you do? And he goes, he calls the plays are called openers. Now, if you're a Patreon member and you missed it, you could watch it. It's about a half an hour interview. If you're not, you want to join, make sure that's the last interview was this past weekend with John. We'll have him later this week. But what John said is when you're putting together a game plan for everyone, particularly when it's not going well, you can move some plays to the front of your playbook. But what you have, yes, they're scripted, but you have openers. You go back to them. If your quarterback is not getting rid of the football, he's inaccurate, he's struggling, get to the ones that you know he can hit. They're absolute money. Like, you know he's good at this. And that's what Brian Johnson has to do a better job of, is helping Hurts. Look, I'm not absolving Johnson. I think he could do a better job as well. But you've got to help him. So you asked about the scheme adjustment. Absolutely has to happen. Get Hurts off to a better start, particularly at Sunday night, where the Cowboys are incredible. They're one of the best home teams. Certainly the Eagles are. They've only lost 3 games the last 2 seasons, the regular season, at home. But Dallas is really good at home, and you may have to match them. You got to help your quarterback better. They've got to help him. He's not playing well enough. Let's call it like it is. And that's the bottom line. But you got to help him. Everyone's got a piece of this situation, Mike.
All right. What about the running game? Ineffective. So why? Yeah. Why is this running game with this great offensive line and the personnel they have? Why is it an ineffective running game? Yeah,
it wasn't good. I know people want them to run it more. And see, it's funny. I'm from the pass the ball crowd. I called it correctly in our pregame show. It's going to be a throw ball game. I pretty much guaranteed it. It's pretty emphatic about it. Another way these coaches look. The way you beat the Niners is you throw the football. They've had, when they had that 3-game losing streak, they gave up plays. You go after Diamador Lenore. That's the guy that teams usually have the bullseye on. Ambry Thomas now is one of their top 3 corners. He's another guy that the Eagles try to get after. But the bottom line is they couldn't. So what could you do is, see, the thing that I like is when it's not working with your quarterback, this is my problem with Andy Reid, Mike. I get throwing the football, coming out throwing. Analytically, you should definitely do that. But if your quarterback is not getting rid of the football, help the guy. Run the football a little bit more. Make a little bit more of a commitment. I know they weren't running well. But you could help your quarterback by selling them down with the running game. That's the only area where I disagree with Sirianni. I heard his press conference this week. I'm going to help my quarterback out by running a little bit more now. And listen, Mike, they were only down by 8 at halftime. This idea that they couldn't run the football is just nonsense. It's just that's what Nick wants to call. They want to throw. We get that. I'm a throw the ball guy. I totally get what they were trying to do, but you can calm your quarterback down by running a little bit more, making commitment to it.
What is the addition of Watkins? Did that add, or were you surprised that he was a bigger part of the offense this week?
That stunned me. We talk about, okay, let's bring the shot play back, and they tried one. See, this is a heavy. We thought they'd go heavy 11 personnel. They did. They did play some 10 personnel. They were heavy the previous 2 games. But what stunned me, Mike, is he played in 64% of the snaps. Now I know their excuse would be because they were behind. They had to throw in the second half, and it's really about the second half. And I get that. That was odd. And the other thing I wanted to add before we move on to the defense is, and I mentioned this on our post-game show, I understand Gainwell is their pass protector in their hurry-up, but that had nothing to do. See, I disagree with Sirianni said. The thing that in my notebook that I put in, he was in there early in the first quarter. Like, they knew they were going to throw, but they weren't in hurry-up. DeAndre Swift is more explosive than Gainwell. I think we all know that. I know he's not as good as a pass protector, but DeAndre Swift is explosive, and I just don't understand what they're doing there earlier on in the game.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. Let's go to defense, Adam. Oh, boy. Fans like the blitz, and they blitzed a lot. It did not work very well. So they tried to pressure. They didn't get the pressure, and it led to some bad tackling.
All right, a couple of things here, Mike. One of the things that Deshaun Desai does that's different from Jonathan Gannon, we're going to have to bring up some stats, though, that aren't favorable. But he blitzes way more. He way heavier. Now, Gannon was about not giving explosive plays. He was great at it. In fact, this is an incredible stat for you Gannon haters. Number 5 in the National Football League. Last year, they finished number 5 in wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end production, yardage, and touchdowns. Take a guess where the Eagles are ranked this season, Mike. They were 5th. They were 5th last season.
They were 5th last season, so yardage to other teams' tight ends and running backs?
Yardage hasn't touched it yet. Quarterback yardage, running back yardage. Well, it's really, let's move running back. So I'm sorry. It's quarterback, tight end, and wide receiver. Yardage and touchdown. The Eagles are ranked 5th. What do you think they're ranked now?
I would say bottom 5.
32nd.
Yeah, bottom 5.
Terrible.
Well,
I mean, it's terrible. I mean, look, Sean Desai deserves some criticism. He absolutely does. I think he's done a nice job overall, but it's pathetic. I mean, every week you're expecting a passer to be anywhere from 250 yards to 400. Dak Prescott, no quarterback right now, is playing better. His last 6 games, 20 touchdown passes. They are super aggressive. The tape shows how poorly the secondaries played this season. I know this last game, linebackers, we'll get to them in a second, they were terrible. But it's the secondary, the lack of consistent pass rush. They have empty pressure numbers. That's a coaching term. That means they're given credit for pressures, but they didn't make the quarterback uncomfortable. Mike, you watched the game. Brock Purdy, I'll give the guy credit. He played very well. Would you not say he's pretty comfortable back there?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, and he was 10 of 11 on the blitz this week.
Yeah. So that can't happen, Mike. Sean Desai's got to get back in the lab with Tracy Rocker and Jeremiah Washburn, the D-line coaches, and they got to do a better job of scheming. They just have to. And they face a Dallas line that's given Dak Prescott an unbelievable amount of time. And here's the damning thing. The Niners line is not even close to as good, particularly in the interior, as the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are just their offense is almost unstoppable right now. I know they've had a great schedule. I certainly will mention that, and that's part of why Prescott's been great lately. But this can't continue. So these coaches have to do a better job of figuring out a way to scheme it up. The players have to execute better. It's almost, Mike, as we talked about this, I was thinking about this earlier when I was putting together my notes for the segment. The fact that this team is 10-2 with all the criticism that they're getting, a lot of it's rightfully so. It's almost a minor miracle they're 10-2 when you really look at it, as hard as their schedule is.
Well, and some people kept saying, hey, they have not played their best. They have not played their best. They have found ways to win. Is this a collection of you kept skating by, and then it finally busted at the seams?
All right, so Fletcher Cox talked about it a little bit after the game. BG, Brandon Graham did. He's been quoted a bunch last 24 to 48 hours about this. So, yeah, look, Mike, here's the deal, though. They may have not played their best ball, but how good is this football team really, Mike? I said coming in the season, I know I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I made it clear they will not be anywhere close as good as last year, but that didn't mean they couldn't make the Super Bowl. They're down 7 starters, 2 new coordinators. A lot of guys that shouldn't be playing. Of course they're not going to be as good. But you don't accept that you can't be. It's a reality. You try to coach better, and you try to get more out of these guys. And there have been some games where these coaches have been phenomenal. But lately, and maybe it's hitting the wall, I do believe they're a little bit tired, whether they want to admit it or not, after the massive amount of snaps, particularly the defense is playing. But the bottom line is, Mike, this gauntlet, look, they had this one. They got housed at home. They got blown out, which they really have not been done since the 21 season. I'm glad they're playing a good team, and it's going to get their attention. It's a divisional game. This is huge, by the way, for divisional implications. We'll see how it goes, Mike, but I'm very interested to see how this team responds. So that's going to be awesome to see that Sunday night.
All right, a couple of things. Let's look at coaching. Sirianni late in the game. I mean, you're down multiple scores. Why are the starters back out there?
That was Nick could say whatever he wants. That was a terrible mistake. I'm not the only one saying that. A very strong league source. I can't tell you who the person is. It's a name that everybody would know. Someone who's worked in the league for a long time texted me, goes, "What the hell is Sirianni doing? They're down by more than 2 scores. What are you doing when they get?" Remember now, the Niners scored right after the Eagles scored. They made it 42-19. Just over 5 minutes left. Pull the starters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it absolutely made no sense. He's wrong. I don't care what he says. He's absolutely wrong. And this person who's worked in the league texted me, and I said, "Dude, I appreciate you texting this because I'm thinking the same way." And I was like, "You've worked in the league." That made me. I was like, I'm going to use that because you're confirming what I thought. I thought it was absurd, and this guy's pretty smart. And yeah, Mike, you can't do that. And Nick's got to be better. I don't care what he says. That's when you're down more than two scores with 5 minutes left, do the math. Be smart and pull your guys out and just live for the next time.
Adam Caplan, let's get your thoughts and what are you hearing about the Shaq Leonard signing, what his role will be, what's he got left in the tank? Why does Indianapolis, a team that's currently a playoff team, why do they cut ties with him? So what do you know about Leonard and his role?
And, Mike, think about this. The Jaguars suffered massive injury problems. They have 6 players who got hurt in the game last night. They had the best injury situation in the National Football League. Now they've got a problem. They're only 1 game up, although they have the tiebreaker against the Colts. So they're not a lock to win that division. They cut Shaq Leonard. It tells you a lot. They owe him $6.1 million not to play for them. So, yeah, he's played weak side linebacker almost exclusively in the Colts 43 front. That's what he's played in. He's going to have to learn the responsibilities playing their 34, the way that they play it. So that's going to take some time. He's definitely going to play something. The question is, because we've seen this, will they throw him in as a starter right away and just say, hey, you're going to do it? I'd be very surprised if Zach Cunningham plays this week. Cunningham has been playing the weak side, though he could play either side, and Morrow's playing the other side. And do they cross-train at both? See, the thing is, there are 2 things they have to learn. They didn't work him out. We confirmed that when he was here. They did not work out. They took a physical, went well. They signed him. The question is now, when he gets into practice, they've got to see how he moves. Yes, they have the game tape. They thought he was good enough to sign. But until he gets into their practice, they're not going to know. And then how fast can he matriculate with the new information that he's going to get? So he's got a learning curve here. They got to get him on the field. They're going to. Christian Ellis got exposed, which we've been talking about. He's a flash player. And the term that I've been told is he gets stuck. Once he gets past the flash plays, the more he's out there, the more it becomes a problem. Van Sumer is a guy, of course, they didn't want out there other than special teams. So they're in kind of dire straits here at the linebacker spot. I still would expect them to work out some inside linebackers. They have to do that. They really could use one more, Mike. And today's a big workout day. I'll get the list later. And we'll talk about it, by the way, on tomorrow's Inside the Bird Show. We always get the workout list, so we'll talk about it. We'll see if they worked anyone out. But, yeah, the communication, as Bradbury talked about after the game, it's got to be better. The tackling was obviously atrocious. I know that Desai talked about them rallying to the ball, but the problem is they're out of position. That's the biggest point here. They've got to do a better job, and Sirianni and the staff, one of the big reasons why I'm a huge fan of Sirianni is there's no sacred cows. He gets after his coaches. The best coaches spare no expense. They'll coach their coaches hard. He does that, and I expect them to do a good job with the corrections here because I'm telling you, Mike, this game's Sunday night. The Cowboys are super aggressive. Mike McCarthy, who's never been known as aggressive, with Brian Schottenheimer, was super aggressive with Russell Wilson in Seattle. That's exactly what you're seeing here, and that's coming Sunday night.
Very good breakdown from Adam Caplan. Shaq Leonard signing, we'll see what kind of impact he has as the Eagle linebackers. Nick Morrow had a tough day at the office. He got targeted a bunch and didn't fare very well against a very talented. That's a team in San Francisco that works the middle of the field really well. Not a lot of teams have the personnel to do what they do. So you got matched up against the best, tight end, running back out of the backfield. Deebo Samuel does a lot in the short pass game. So that was a rough matchup. We'll see if they can rebound this week against the Dallas Cowboys. And Adam will break it all down for us on Friday's edition of Football at 4. Thank you, Adam.
See ya.